Aloha, and press your button, bring it close so we can hear you clearly, and you have 3 minutes to testify on each agenda item.
Yes, good morning. I'll be testifying on Resolution 287 today. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for your service to our community. Just to review some of the background as we stated before and make sure some points are clear. My wife Elizabeth and I purchased this parcel that's on consideration in the resolution. We purchased it in 2008. We did that because we were investing in agricultural land on this island. I have several decades of working in agriculture, and that's my interest. I would point out that at the time we purchased it, we were also purchased some other parcels of agricultural land in the county. In Olohu, we were very interested in the good quality soil there, its location, and we're considering putting in a produce stand on the site. Later, one day, truly out of the blue, the telephone rang, and the county contacted us. It was the Department of Finance, and they were contacting us about their desire to purchase our land as part of a wastewater treatment facility. The state land surrounding it was actually the site of the proposed facility, and they were wanting to use our land to put the pipe across. That was the first time I had ever heard that the county had any kind of plans for that, and was quite surprised. So the county proceeded to do their due diligence, and it was then determined that our land was at the center, basically, of a wider area that's a major cultural and historic site. And it's been quite an interesting journey for us since then. A few years ago, I did not know what an ulu maika was, but it's a stone in a game that's used, and I've had the opportunity to learn quite a bit. And being a person who loves this island, I appreciate that opportunity. It did occur that once it was determined to be a historic site, we talked with the people in the State Division of State Historic Division, and saw that designation was going to create quite a bit of uncertainty in terms of our use of that land. We talked with various people and had a lot of things going on in our own lives, so that we couldn't jump on top of it right away. But as we did our research and we talked with people, it seemed to us that the PONC, the PONC process, was really quite a good fit as we read the requirements that were laid out there. Initially, I was rather hesitant because I thought it was a rather onerous process, to tell you the truth. And then I talked with the PONC people, the staff, more, and looked at what was required, and we took a deep breath and pushed on. And the more research I did of what PONC wanted and what our situation was, I saw it was fit. So that's how we got to where we are today, and very glad to address any questions that any of you have. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherford, and I'm sure council members might have questions when the resolution comes up before discussion, so if you would like to stay, we can definitely push that. It's in the first of the agenda, so it'll be up there in the beginning.
I'll be here.
Thank you.
Jerry Warren from Olohu. I'm against the PONC purchase of the Weatherford property. In full council on October 20th, Dr. James Weatherford, PhD, told you that the Olohu sewer line was going across his property. Actually, the sewer plant was going to be on his property. This kind of lie is called an omission of fact. Miley David told you that she spoke to me. She never has. Her staff gave up all efforts a long time ago. So nobody responded to your request that she talk with me. Here's another omission of fact, this time from a council member. If you call for a public hearing and a site inspection in Olohu, you will hear from people who work day jobs. They can tell you if they want to see this 13 acres taken out of future hay production. Perhaps a constitutional scholar will explain how you can form a host culture religion and how you can use our tax money to buy a churchyard that will be county owned and operated with future county tax money. Could be the first one in America. if it only takes 3 votes, let me start over. It only takes 3 votes to have a public hearing. I've been learning more and more about the 13 acres. I'm sure that a lot of history will be shared if you come to Olohu. So I'm urging you to call for a public hearing. Let me add that the Weatherford property is ag exempt, so he only pays $100 a year tax on a $180,000 property. A site inspection will allow you to judge for yourself if he deserves the break. You can also see just how easy it is to walk there from Olohu town, as the host culture representatives say it is. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony.
Richard Abbott, in support of Resolution 28715, representing himself.
Aloha, my name is Richard Abbott in Kahua, speaking from Olohu, in support of Resolution 287-15, introduced by Ms. Miley David, and has been kicked down. The can's been kicked down the road a couple times, and thank you again also to her and Mr. Paleka for their continued support and interest in this key property in our area. Notwithstanding the claims by an individual as to maybe the appropriateness of some of the activities that go on behind this, it doesn't do anything to change the fact that this piece of property is a key piece of property next to the highway between the school and down below that needs to be utilized in some kind of fashion for the both the historical significance and the host culture, but as well as for its abilities to be able to provide that area up above the ocean there with perhaps another public space. It could also be key in future economic development opportunities south of Olohu, just above the highway. So we support this and the community in general. And although there have been concerns raised by an individual, I don't think that in any way, shape, or form has anything to do with going forward with utilization of this piece of property. And thank you for the opportunity to testify. These are very good to be able to have these opportunities in our districts, to be able to utilize this, to be able to give such testimony. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mahalo, for your testimony. Coming back here to Kona, we have Elizabeth Weatherford. Again, if you could restate your name for the record, and 3 minutes to testify on each agenda item. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Weatherford, District 4, excuse me. There were some concerns brought up, regarding the bill, the resolution that's just been mentioned, the Olohu Makahiki ground. We were told, myself and my husband James Weatherford were told by county personnel that a sewer pipe would go across our property under the original plan by the county, not that there would be a wastewater site on our property. And the difference is negligible, since since it can't be done there anyway because of the historical designation. Also mentioned was that we enjoy agricultural tax exemption. That's been rescinded, and we pay full property tax on it as of this year. And the reason it's been rescinded is because we haven't used it for agricultural purposes. We have a farm in Puna, and that's where we do our work. And also cultivation and many other activities are prohibited by the historical designation. This right now is the beginning of the Makahiki season, the perfect time to make this possible, make Makahiki observances possible in that area, and I hope to see that happen. I'd love to see that become used again for those sorts of purposes. Thank you so much. Aloha. Thank
Mahalo
you
for your testimony. Mr. Clerk, Resolution 287.
Resolution 287-15 authorizes Director of Finance to enter into negotiations for the acquisition of tax map K9-5-012005 situated in the district of Kau, also known as Kahua, Olohu, utilizing the Public Access Open Space and Natural Resources Preservation Fund. The 13-acre Kahua, Olohu property is listed as a key priority for purchase in the 2014 annual report of the Public Access Open Space and Natural Resources Preservation Commission for its historical significance and cultural importance. Introduced by Ms. David. There's a pending motion on the floor to adopt this resolution.
I think you said there was a pending motion on the floor, so I will. Was that correct? Okay, Ms. David.
Yes, mahalo, Chair. Thank you very much this morning for testimonies given from Mr. Weatherford and Mr. Abbott and also Mr. Warren in Hilo regarding this matter. As you guys may recall, earlier in the prior meeting regarding this matter, Mr. Chung had raised a question on whether there were some concerns in the fact that Mr. Weatherford may have had a special interest in the PONC creation because of his employment with Mr. Jacobson. So Mr. Aaron Chung asked me to investigate this matter, and I did. And I checked the records, and with the help of our clerk's office, and in the interest of transparency and open government, this is what I found. In 2004, in the term 2004-2006 term where Mr. Jacobson introduced this matter, it was not the first time that the consideration of creating a public access open space commission arose. It initially came about in the council term 2002-2004, and it was brought forward by then council member Gary Safarik as a charter amendment, and that measure failed. Then at the time Mr. Jacobson introduced this matter in the 2004-2006 term, it was introduced as Bill 78. It was legislation, again creating the PONC. It was dated March 18, 2005, and introduced by council member in the Finance Committee and was heard in April 2005. Bill 78 became effective on June 13, 2005, and Mr. Weatherford's employment, which I confirmed with our clerk's office, his employment with Mr. Jacobson began on July 1st, 2005, after the effective date of Bill 78. And so in that regard, I think we have cleared up any concern in my mind that there's any perception of any special interests of the Weatherfords in this property. And I have to echo the testimony of Mr. Abbott, that what we are here to consider, given the fact that we have clarified what was the major concern, is that this property is very significant in our cultural history, and it is worth preserving. So in that respect, I yield.
Thank you, Ms. David. Mr. Chung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. In response to what Ms. David provided to all of us, and first of all, I really appreciate you doing that background check. But during the course of her discourse, she talked about, Mr. Chung, asked these questions, and which I did. But really, the theme of my questions were really for the sake of transparency. I don't know Mr. Weatherford. This is the first time I've ever seen him in person, quite frankly. So it's not about Mr. Weatherford or whether he's telling the truth, not the truth. I really don't know. But we had a concern raised by a concerned citizen, which we, as a legislative body, have to follow up if there is the possibility of wrongdoing. And so I just wanted to get that straight, okay? And Ms. David, I also agree with Mr. Abbott, because as you well know, right after that hearing, I spoke with you and I said, Miley, I'm just letting you know I support your initiative because I trust your judgment. I'm still going to vote for this thing, but we as a body have to do the necessary follow-up just to maintain the public trust. So, I know that, you weren't pointing fingers at me, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands here, right, the reasons for my questions. It's not that I have anything about against the Weatherfords or even had questions about this. But I think we'd be remiss in our duties if we did not follow up. Yeah. And that's all I have to say. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Mr. Onishi?
Okay, thanks. Can I have Hamana Ventura? You can introduce yourself when you come up.
Hello, good morning. Hamana Ventura, property manager.
Thank you for coming. I just had a question. Is it possible to subdivide this property where we just take, because is the whole, what, 13 acres or 18 acres?
13 acres.
13. Is the whole 13 acres the historical? Or is it just a portion of it?
I don't have the answer at this time. I can find out. But as presented, the 13 acres in totality was included in the application, and they believe that the entire parcel to have significance.
Okay. Because, I mean, if, say, like, 3 acres is that historical part and the other 10 could be used as agriculture. I mean, what a waste, right? Because we could have somebody to farm that property, or the Weatherfords could be farming that property on the 10 acres and then, just preserving the other 3 acres that could come out of the county.
Well, I believe part of the process is once acquired is that we'll go and do a total survey, bring in the experts to survey the entire property for archaeological significance. It may be dispersed throughout the parcel.
But then, when a person buys a property, does that trigger anything, like a survey being done?
It does.
And so, when you purchasing the property, would it be known to you that there is possible historical things on your property that you're purchasing?
That's a good question. If, let's say, for example, that you went through just buying a cash sale.
Right.
And survey may not be required. How buyers and sellers negotiate between themselves, there are different types of transactions. If we were going in for financing, whoever's providing the money may end up requiring survey, phase 1 environmental, some additional items to meet the criteria to lend money on the property. But if, in the case, properties are bought with cash, then the sellers and buyers have the ability to negotiate in regard to what makes a transaction fly. So it's not per se required on every single transaction.
Okay, good.
That the property there have been properties that may have been acquired via cash transactions or were handed down through, let's say, inheritance, where surveys or studies have never been done, yet there's a possibility that there are archaeological significant items on these properties that have never been discovered.
Okay, so once this resolution is passed, then would you folks be able to get that information on how the purchase was done? And if there was any survey done before?
We can check into that.
Yeah, okay, because, once we pass this resol, that's it. You guys are not coming back to us, right?
No.
Right, and so, if, like I mentioned, if it's possible for you guys to look into maybe subdividing, because if it's just like 2 acres, then why are we going to take the other 11 when it could be used in production of agriculture? And we talked about being sustainable. and now we're going to take out maybe whatever acres out of the land bank of agriculture land, right? And so now that much less we get to produce, right? So I'm just kind of thinking of that. And then the last thing, I think at the last meeting or the first time this thing came up was mentioned about having a buyer for that property. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishi. We're still on the first round, council members. Anybody on the first round? Okay, moving on to the second round, Ms. David.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And with respect to the location of the sewage treatment plant, in the State Historic Preservation Division's letter to Mr. Weatherford, they clarify that the environmental review of the wastewater treatment plant included a proposed easement through Parcel 5, which is the Kahua, Olohu. And so I just wanted to confirm that. And also, with respect to the significance on whether in the archaeological survey report that they did in conjunction with the proposed location of the sewage treatment plant, and this I'll cover when I cover my proposed amendment for the resolution, but this, I wanted to confirm that, and also that it was a gaming field that is associated with Makahiki. And it wasn't part of it. The entire parcel, according to the archaeological survey, was a gaming field. And there are many gaming fields throughout Olohu. And so I will save, save my further discussion when we discuss my proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Mr. Chung had a question. No? Okay, Ms. David, you might as well just make the amendment or make a motion now.
I move to amend Resolution 287-15 with the contents of Communication 476.9.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. David to amend Resolution 287-15 with the contents of Communication 476.9. Ms. David.
Thank you, Chair. So before I explain why the reasons for bringing forward these amendments, I would like to also just thank Mr. Chung for clarifying that that this was a concern of a testifier, of a constituent, and the reason I named him in my response was because he personally asked me to investigate this, and I agreed because I believe that we need to be transparent, as he said. So that being said, I'm proposing amendments to this reso based on a meeting that I had with three constituents, Native Hawaiian, two Native Hawaiian constituents, that met with me and discussed the current form of my resolution. And what they interpreted my resolution by reading it to imply that, and some of the testimony that was given written, that Kahua Olohu was the actual Makahiki ground. And after a lengthy discussion and verifying this matter with the archaeological report, it was actually the gaming ground that is associated with Makahiki. And so one of the historians from Olohu went through the whole report with me, and I told her that I would be willing to make the amendment to make it clear that people will not assume that this 13-acre parcel is the Makahiki grounds, because the Makahiki grounds is huge, and gaming fields were scattered throughout the Makahiki grounds. So I really thought that that was very important to clarify before we move forward. So I thank Darlene, Liz, and Alan for meeting with me, and this is why I have brought forward the proposed amendment. And I also did a little bit of house cleaning, because based on that, I don't believe we need to go into that much detail in the sixth whereas, and therefore if you look at Communication 476.9, you can see that I actually clarified that the site is associated with a historically famous Wahipana, which is a storied legendary place of Kahua, used as a traditional gaming field for Hawaiian sports and makahiki. I deleted paragraph 2, which is redundant because I think it describes it adequately in paragraph 1. Changed paragraph 3 to paragraph 2, and deleted in its entirety paragraph 4 because basically, based on testimony from the PONC, Alex, it was not intended to even be on the list, and it's not going to be proposed for that. So I deleted that in its entirety. I think it's a cleaner reso. It's accurate as far as its reference to what this place, the significance of this place. And that being said, I ask your support.
Thank you, Ms. David. Council members on the amendment. Mr. Paleka.
Since I have, are there any plans for this property if it is acquired?
Well, our plans are to preserve it.
Again, could you restate your name for the record?
Excuse me, Hamana Ventura, property manager. Of course, our plans are always to protect and preserve going forward, and stewardship community based on community input. There may be some cultural activities that we may be able to utilize the property for based on previous use. So I think there's a world of possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paleka. Any other discussion on the amendment? Ms. Eoff?
Well, specifically to the amendment, I think Ms. David did her due diligence and made good corrections here, so I totally support the amendment. And just a comment from what's been said today is there probably are quite a lot of acres of historically significant sites in this area, but unfortunately, we can only really preserve and utilize some of them. And through this fund, we have the opportunity to maybe, like Mr. Ventura just stated, reuse the lands for those purposes that they were once used for, which would be an asset to our Hawaiian culture and to the community at large, just to be able to learn and see and do and keep Hawaiian culture alive. So that's why I support this fund so wholeheartedly. It's because, like we were saying yesterday, there's pressure to develop. There's more people coming here, and when we do have an opportunity to leave some lands in open space and a further opportunity to be able to revitalize them for purposes that could be educational, I think that's the beauty of the fund. And thank you for helping us understand that. And this reso actually just authorizes you to do the negotiations, so it's not a done deal yet. It just puts it in the pipe, as I understand it, so that it's one of the properties that we'll consider. Yes. And I know you have to look into it further to get to the final purchase, but yeah, thank you, Ms. David. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eoff. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, hearing or seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9 ayes, motion passes. We are now on to the main resolution as amended, but because of our Rule 24 and the changes that we made, this is up for final reading, so we have to hold this over to the next council meeting unless there's any, Ms. David.
Would I be, excuse me, wow. I'd like to waive the 5-day
Would you like, no. Would you
I'd
like
to
to suspend our Rule 24?
Yes. Move to suspend Rule 24.
So that we can vote on this
today. So we
today.
can vote on it today.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. David and seconded by Ms. Willie. to suspend Rule 24 so that it will allow us to vote on this resolution today. Mr. Clerk, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9 ayes, motion passes. So now we can actually discuss this and vote on this today. Ms. David, on the main motion as amended.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's input, especially in the interest of transparency and open government, and I just ask your support for this very important purchase. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. David. Councilmember, Mr. Onishi.
Yeah, I just wanted to, let the public know, because I guess the sewer plant or its wastewater treatment thing was supposed to be like maybe located on that property, but then it's not anymore. So maybe you can clear that up too. Thank you.
Thank you. The initial proposed sewage treatment plant surrounded this parcel. So when they did the archaeological inventory, that's when they found that the state parcel where the sewage treatment plant was going to be located had so many archaeological sites and features that they recommended it not be used as the proposed site. So as far as I understand it now, they're looking for another proposed sewage treatment plant site in Olohu. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Ms. David. Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Any other discussion on this resolution as amended? Mr. Chung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually wasn't going to talk about this, but first of all, the bottom line is I support this. Okay, I support Miley's resolution, but I got a number of calls regarding this because I guess I'm the guy who's going to raise some of the concerns. So I have to at least, on behalf of those persons who contacted me, none of whom were Mr. Warren, coincidentally, okay. But this actually piqued the interest of quite a bit of people. And, right after our meeting, I did do follow-up, on the timing of everything. And then, it is, as Ms. David stated, it was Mr. Jacobson who introduced it, but I think Mr. Weatherford wasn't on board at that time. And I've explained that to the people who have talked to me. And it's nothing against Mr. Weatherford, Mr. Jacobson. It's about the process. Right now, we're at a heightened state of alert as it relates to ethics. And even with my explanation, people say that it doesn't appear correct. Okay, there are concerns. People are always worried about, insider information and things like that. And as I said, I'm not casting aspersions toward anyone here, but I just want everyone to know that there are people in the public who are concerned about this. But as Mr. Abbott stated, and I stated earlier, that has nothing to do with the merits of this resolution, which I continue to support. So I will do that. But on behalf of the people who did contact me, and maybe others have received those same communications, I think I owe it to them to at least state their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Ms. David?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for informing me of that. And would you be able to have them call my office? Because if my constituents are calling me, that's a concern, because I don't want to appear that I'm unapproachable, which I don't want. I don't want that perception, since we're talking perception. And I believe that, I know we're in a heightened state of accountability, but I believe that if there are valid concerns about ethical matters, that this is not the body to deal with it, per se, that we can address it as much as we can and bring it out in open session. But I'm very concerned that if that is going on, I want to find out what avenues that these concerned citizens may have. If we can't do anything, you're going to support the resolution anyway. So the fact that we're discussing this, I would like to give them an option if they continue to have concerns and we can't address it as this body, then I think I need to tell them where they can go and where they can take their concerns to get it properly addressed. You know, perception is perception, but I brought forth facts about the timing of this entire purchase and creation of the PONC. So I appreciate you telling me that. I'd like you to let me know who I can contact so I can at least talk to them.
Yeah. Mr. Chung, if you could respond.
Thank you. You know, and I think these, I don't know if they're your constituents. I really don't think they're your constituents. The people who called or talked to me were just people who are concerned about the process, not so much the specifics of this measure, but just in terms of ethics, okay? And like anything else, okay, you know, because I was the person who was voicing Mr. Warren's concerns, they came to me, right? They didn't come to any of you guys. Maybe they did, but, and that's like any other measure when you think about it. If you have a person who's voicing their concerns on this body and the members of the public see, hey, that's my champion, they're going to go to that person, right? And that's just the nature of the game, right? But I'll try to see, you know, if they're willing to talk to you. But as I said, it's of no consequence to this measure, okay? But I just wanted to say on their behalf that there are some concerns about other things. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Ms. David, if you could just finish us
Yeah,
off
I
and
will.
send us on a positive note here.
Yes, I will. I would appreciate it very much, support of this measure. And thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. David. Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'd just like to say I support this as well. You know, glad to see all the workings going on between each and every one of us to make sure that these resolutions and bills are passed and vetted thoroughly. So I appreciate that process. All in favor of Resolution 287-15 as amended, say aye. Any opposed? 9 ayes, motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you.